Fighting out of Toronto, Canada, he is the bodybuilding champion of the world, presenting James Hurricane Hergott.
James Hergott here with the Hergott Show, and I am joined with Angela Robinson, who I've known for a long time, and she's been a friend, and she's helped out on radical body transformations and done a bunch of different stuff. And some cool things about Angela: she competes in figure, and she lives in Edmonton, Alberta. And she's had a very interesting and dynamic life. So welcome to the show, Angela.
Thanks, James. It's great to see you.
So if there's any interruptions during this, she's got 3 dogs, 2 Chihuahuas, and one
is a pit bull cross. Trying to engage me right now.
Very cool. So what have you been up to these days?
Well, tons. Working for myself right now. Training a ton. Getting ready for CBBF Figure Nationals next. I think it's the end of July. So right now, my focus has been on putting on some muscle, lifting heavy in the gym, and actually pushing myself outside my comfort zone. Typically, in my off season, there's always a weight that our bodies like to kind of sit around. And in order to change my game, to step up my game for next year, I'm pushing myself outside that box and eating a ton, training heavy, and trying to grow. So I did some progress pictures. I posted them on social media. I looked the best I've ever looked in my off season. Like shape wise, and on the scale, I'm the heaviest I've ever been. So I'm quite excited about that.
That's awesome. And you continue to improve. Tell me, like, what got you into competing in the first place?
Wow, back in was my 2003 was the first year that the CBBF brought this new category figure. I had always wanted to compete in fitness, but I don't know the way. I suck at routines. I'm not a dancer. I'm not a gymnast. I'm barely like an aerobics class kind of girl. So when figure came out, I was like, okay, score. This is my category. And I basically just winged it. I dieted from 135 pounds to 90 pounds on stage because I had no muscle. And didn't do very well, but my experience was so positive. I got to meet people that I normally wouldn't have connected with, and that kind of inspired me to, keep going. And honestly, some of those friends that I've met, 2003, 2004, have just still, what's this, like 13, 14 years later, are still part of my life. And I just believe in, because competing is a subjective sport. I believe that I have to compete for myself and, kind of bringing the package to the stage that, doing my best and being proud of that. So, regardless of where the judging falls, I can stand there and say, you know what? I did my best. I am proud of how I look, and let's rock it, regardless of, the placing or the outcome of that. So, I think that's where it started for me in 2003, and that's how come I've stayed in the sport for so long. So.
And when's nationals?
I think July 29th in Vancouver.
Okay, and so what would you say your best body parts are?
For me, my back and my shoulders, easily. One of my weakest body parts is my glutes and my legs. So that's been a big focus.
And what's been your most improved?
I would say my overall package would be most improved, because over the years, my posing has improved, my and just allowing time to grow the muscle that I've needed to grow, and have it develop, not put on, 20 pounds of muscle in 2 years. So for me, it's been quite the journey, over 13 or 14 years to be what I am today.
So for the average person out there, can you give me some tips on like, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be heading January, and they're going to want to, get in shape for their New Year's resolutions. Do you have some kind of quick and dirty tips on like, how to make it through the holidays, and then starting in January, kind of key things to do to get in shape for the summer? Obviously not to necessarily compete like you're doing, but just to get into better shape all around.
For sure. One of the biggest things is going to be eliminate the simple sugars from your diet. Even for me, even from contest off season, it's a lifestyle. It's not a quick fix, or, it's not, I'm eating like crap in my off season and then I go extreme to a contest diet. I eat healthy because I like how it makes me feel. So my recommendation for people, starting in January, is set yourself up for success. Set small goals, small attainable goals, and work towards them. So I would start with one dietary goal, and that would be eliminating simple sugars. And then maybe adding a physical goal. So that is getting to the gym. But again, not getting to the gym 5 or 6 days a week, because that's not setting yourself up for success. Set yourself up with, 2 of the weekdays and 1 weekend day, or 3 of the weekdays. And that way you can find balance. I think people set themselves up for failure when they take on, they think, okay, I'm just going to overhaul my whole life and change everything. And it becomes too much. Then they start to miss things that they used to do. And eventually that they're going to just fall back into their old habits. So change happens slowly. And that's my best advice, is set small goals and work towards them. And once you achieve them, don't be afraid to set more. I think people think, okay, I've accomplished this, and then they stop. Well, no, that's when the work starts. So that's when you keep growing, and, it's a journey. This is something that when you embark on in, January or now or whenever you decide to start, it's, and it's just staying committed to whatever it is you choose to do, because we all fail. We've all cheated on our diets. We've all skipped a day at the gym. But the difference between the people who aren't successful and the people that are, is that the people that are successful get back on the bandwagon, get back on the horse, and they keep going. So that's my best advice.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I've seen that in my own life with like people that are non-competitors, and like it's like, oh, they screw up and they have a candy bar, and then they're like, oh man, I screwed up, and then they use that as an excuse to get off the diet altogether.
Right.
And then I've seen like really successful competitors who I've known have fallen off, and yeah, sure, they fall off, but then they just get back on routine. And the reality is, like, your body can can get onto something bad or whatever, and it's not really going to make a huge difference, if any, really. I mean, it might even like help you in some ways, in terms of changing up your metabolism. So I think if hardcore, and I think that the average person looks at like a hardcore competitor and they're like, oh, that person must be perfect all the time and they never, screw up. But those people are human beings, and even the best of the best and the most dedicated and stuff like that, a lot of times they have regular things in life. They may fall off. They also have personal lives. They may have dating situations or tragedies in their life that make it harder for them to go to the gym, or make it harder emotionally, and they kind of work through that stuff. Not to mention not to mention injuries. That happens too.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's some really great advice. Now, one thing about you, and this was like a few years back, is there was a article that came out, and it was saying about how, now at the time you were an EMT, and it was saying that you're having to deal with being bipolar. And then we talked later about this, and you said that like the final diagnosis was more to do with depression and post-traumatic stress and all that kind of thing. So I'd like you to kind of share that experience, because again, people might look at you, oh, look at her physique, and she's perfect and this and that, and not realize like some of the challenges that you've been through. So maybe if you could like start with like kind of what set you down this path, or when you realized that something was wrong.
Yeah, it's thanks for bringing that up, James. It's definitely something that is very close to my heart. I worked in EMS for about 8.5 years, started off as an EMT, did my paramedic school and all of that. And I want to say about 5 or 6 years into my EMS career, I started feeling, started to withdraw from the world. And anybody who knows me knows I'm an outgoing person. I love people. I'm pretty social and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, it was like something snapped. I started not wanting to leave the house. I started calling in sick to work. And so I ended up taking some time off work and went and talked to a psychologist. So went through that whole process. And one of the characteristics of me that makes me fairly unique, and that's originally why they diagnosed me as bipolar, is I am a highly functioning person. And I am someone who puts on a strong face, as many of us do all the time, puts on a smile and kind of, I don't know, I hide how I feel. I hide, I've definitely evolved, but I never realized, and this is, I never realized what normal could feel like for so long. And, getting into, treatment with a psychologist and being able to speak openly about some of my own challenges, it really opened my eyes to what real life can be, like how positive that it can be. And I literally, I went from, I can remember always fighting with my boyfriends, and it was partly to do with the fact that I was so miserable in my heart that I looked for a reason for this in the outside world. I looked to justify this kind of misery, and they never found an answer. So I had many failed relationships. And then I, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak to somebody about my struggles, and taking a year off work was just such a blessing. So during that course of the year, my diagnosis ended up being depression and exacerbated by post-traumatic stress. And for me, the post-traumatic stress manifested itself in anxiety, social anxiety, and the depression itself manifested in basically extreme exhaustion and just the inability to formulate that quick thinking. My brain felt sluggish, is the best way I can describe it. And over the course of that year, it was probably one of the most difficult years of my life, having to, constantly do the hard work and look within and, do my homework and, basically, modifying certain behaviors. And it's the best year of my life. That year, I looked at the psychologist at the end of that year, and they gave me my life back. And I have shared a lot of this journey with people because I feel like it's important. There's such a stigma associated with mental health, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, all of that stuff. And it's like, it's like this dirty secret that, we all have been there. Every person I talk to has experienced some point of depression in their life. And it's like, when did we become these creatures that, will stop supporting each other and started judging? And, that's not me. I will share my journey. And with the hope of, even giving hope to one person, the one person that, is there. Because I know when you feel that darkness, it's really, really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And, my hope is just to, give people faith that light is there, that there is, there's a reason for everything. And, it's, like when I look back, I don't even know how I functioned, because I was that kind of misery, it's incomprehensible to me today, but was my reality for so long. And it's kind of hard for me to believe.
Yeah, and you've always been somebody that I've known as like really energetic and dynamic. And I know that you talked about like how during those times, like you would be able to go on a shift and you'd have like, lots of energy and you'd be able to accomplish all this stuff. And like, there's certainly an aspect of your personality, when it comes to like going to the gym, or even like, I'm sure I wasn't there for your work, but from what you described, where you're just like, go, 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 go. And what did you like kind of realize about yourself with that? Because I'm sure like there must have been times that you just like burn out, because I've got to think you can only redline for so long.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is that's one of the skills that I'm so type A. I am so jump in. Let's give it all. Like I want it all. But they don't teach you, like when you're a brand new EMT and you're out into the world on an ambulance, they don't actually teach you anything about dealing with some of the stuff that you encounter. So it's really like winging it, doing the best you can. And, for me, I'm like, when I do a very serious call, for me, I'll put it in the back of my mind and just keep going. And eventually that it does, it taxes your system, that your ability to deal with new events disappears. So that's eventually when I just began to shut down. I was just done. Like that's the best way I could describe it. Like, like flipping pages through a book and then you slam the book closed, done. And so over the course of the year, one of the things that I was taught was learn how to feel, and it's okay to feel, and EMS, we're there to do a job, but we're human. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget, that we have hearts, we have families, we have, people we care about. And it's hard to sometimes see other humans in trauma, in any kind of traumatic situation. If you're a family member or you're the patient, it's difficult. And for me, over the course of that year, I really had to learn skills on how to deal with those emotions that I had stuck in the back of my brain, and allow myself to, grieve, or allowed myself to forgive, or, any of those feelings that I had stored away. And that was a very emotionally taxing process too, because, that's we're talking, so many different calls over the years that, it's so now I'm a very big advocate on, PTSD awareness in EMS is now a real injury, like a real workplace injury. And that's a new thing over the past, 1 to 2 years. And I think that's a step in the right direction. So there's hope for the career, and there's hope for everybody.
Right. And it's like, it really is like going into a war zone. I mean, if you're seeing a lot of people, pretty much every call, you're seeing somebody that, is either hurt or it's a stressful situation. And just like being in a battlefield, that I'm sure can have, tremendous impact, on somebody's psyche. Can you share with me like some of the tips that maybe the psychologist shared with you, or like, either to like as coping mechanisms or to help you, kind of get back on track as a person?
I think step one was allow yourself to feel. It's okay to feel. It's okay to have feelings. The other thing is to do some reflection. So I'm not really a journal person. I had to just take some quiet time to myself to be able to reflect and work through basically some of the events. So if you are a writer, I do suggest journaling. No one can ever read it. You can burn it when you're done, but it is therapeutic to talk about it and share to a degree. For me, it's been very therapeutic to even open up to a lot of my friends and a lot of my clients and be able to share some of the, the stuff that I went through. But I think reflection and journal writing would be probably, some of the top ones, and taking some time for ourselves. And I think that applies to all aspects of life. If you're in a busy job or, whatever you do for work or to pass the time, we all get stressed. And I think that it doesn't really matter. Like for me, the stress was traumatic situations, but it's all how we deal with it, right? Like, people can be, that self-imposed stress from crazy deadlines and, crazy work weeks and, that kind of thing can be just as traumatic for somebody in that situation. It's relative. So, my definition now of a real problem is way different than it used to be. That's for sure. But, I think just being open and not internalizing it and realizing that you aren't alone.
Yeah, I just interviewed a University of Toronto psychologist, and he's got like a whole program on, it's basically all about like it's called self-authoring, and it's based on the work that he and other psychologists have done in the field that, dealing with like both your past, present, future through writing is very significant. And one of the things that he spoke about was that if you have something that you're still thinking about past 18 months, then that means that it's something that you haven't like resolved in your head. Like your head is still like, it hasn't figured out like why it got into that situation and how to avoid getting into it again. So, writing about your past and your feelings and stuff like that can really help you kind of sort things out. So that's a program I recommend. But even, aside from that, hearing, his explanation and, talking with you, obviously that's something, really important. And I think even the self-reflection, even if it's not writing, thinking about, you and how your life can improve, I think is a very important thing. How has like how has your dating life been, before that and now post, and like, how do you find it currently?
Well, pre was, I would say, unsuccessful. I've had the opportunity to go on a lot of first dates. About 2 years ago, I left really mentally abusive and eventually became physically abusive relationship. And I always I do laugh about it now because I believe in the universe, and I believe when we are presented with choices, it's significant and you should pay attention. So when the day that it became physically abusive, that was the day I left, and that was the universe's way of getting my attention and saying, Angela, you need to make a change. You need to, this is the, when I say the universe, but I'm going to say God or whatever you believe, that when those choices are presented to us, we have to pay attention. So I left that day, and I think that I've had the opportunity to meet some really amazing men. Spend some time with people that I probably would never have crossed paths with, like, dating a UFC fighter. One of the most humble people I've ever met. He's still fighting, still doing amazing, and he's still a close friend. And I think that, I'm not going to say his name, but you know who it is. And I think, taking a little bit of a lesson from everybody that you meet along the way is very important. And I think there's, I've definitely learned my share of lessons. And but I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to have met some great people and spend some close time with people that, still inspire me. And yeah, I know that we've talked a lot about dating, and I've expressed my frustration with dating in 2016. It's completely different than, as you know, completely different than it used to be with social media, and it's totally changed the game. So when I get to meet people and connect with them on a genuine level, it's such a gift. And those are the people that you'll stay connected with, like you and I. We were friends before we ever met in person, and I think we'll remain friends because there's lots of good people in the world, and then there are lots of genuine people. So I think that we just have to the good people have to stick together and learn lessons along the way, and keep having faith in the big picture. I recently met a super nice guy, and things are going really well. So we'll see what's in store for that. But for now, I'm really optimistic. He's unlike anybody I've ever dated. So, that's positive. And yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's an interesting story unto itself. How long have you been dating him for now?
Just a couple of months. So still in the getting to know you and your quirks kind of phase.
And what's it like dating you?
I know I'm a handful. I think that I'm a really, transparent person. Who I am with you is who I am with, everybody who knows me. I tell it like it is. He would say when he first met me, I know that I caught him off guard a few times because I'm so blunt, and he almost says I'm harsh sometimes. And I don't mean it ever unkindly, because my heart is inherently kind and I always mean well. But sometimes I just like to skip through the bullshit and just and then talk about what's important. So I can be a little bit ruthless with that, but my heart is good. And when somebody wins over that kind of loyalty from me, then I'm loyal to them. For as long as, it is. So, yeah. Feed me, let me have water, let me have access to a gym and good food. I'm golden.
Okay. And I think there was another F in there, but you paused.
There's actually a silent fifth one, but we'll just keep it PG.
Okay. All right. Let me think about this. So gym, water, food, F, and what was the other one? I missed something. Is that all?
Feed me. Let me have water. There's four. There's four.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you're like a dude, like you.
I think I'm easy.
Doesn't sound too high maintenance to me. That sounds easy to me. So that's about all I require, and good communication. But yeah. But no, it sounds like you kind of think like a guy in a way. Is that true?
Yes, and I know I feel for men. I really do. because I realize that when I interact with, women that don't think like me, and I feel like I'm an alien. I feel like I'm the odd one out, which is kind of funny. So I feel for men definitely out there.
And what is it that you would think that their challenge would be, like from what you've observed with women?
Um, the emotional sensitivity of my sex. I can be a sensitive person, but sometimes if I'm not happy, I'm going to tell you I'm not happy. I'm not going to stomp around the house. I'm not going to say I'm fine. Like, those are things that I'm not going to do. So, for other people, there was a time where I did. There was when I, was 20 and I didn't know anything. And now if I'm unhappy, I say something. If something's annoying, I'm going to say it's annoying. If, that's a spade is a spade. And I appreciate that straightforwardness in others. That's why you and I get along, because you are similar to that as well. And I think most women are super sensitive and overly emotional, in my opinion.
You said overly emotional, and what was the first thing?
Super sensitive.
Yeah. Look, guys can be sensitive in their own way. They may just kind of like brood more, about it.
Yes, true.
Human beings can be sensitive in general. I would say the bigger problems, which are kind of like tied into what you're saying that I've experienced, one is that women, like I found that men are like you said, very straightforward, and that women, they're not straightforward, but then they also think that what you tell them isn't the truth. So, and look, everybody lies, or, a lot of people lie, and there's big lies and small lies and all that. I'm not really talking about that. What I'm saying is that, like, you can tell a girl, like, here's the issue I have in the relationship, and I'm speaking in general. In general, women will start thinking about, what is he really like? What's his issue really?
What's he not saying?
Right. And it's like, and they'll totally ignore what you just told them. So I'll give you two examples. So because I'm involved in the fitness industry, I've been around a lot of women that, are attractive and have nice bodies. So then if I date somebody who doesn't have a perfect body, and nobody has a perfect body, maybe they're like insecure about that, right? So then, like I had one girl who I told her that the issue that I had was lack of communication and lack of sex, okay? And she kept going on about like her body and how I want this like perfect model, and I never said that. I never criticized her body. I never compared her to anybody physically. And I was totally happy with her body, even though her body wasn't a competitor's body. In fact, that was like the last thing. Like, I've dated girls that have like complete competitor physiques, that have six packs, and I've dated women who don't. And like, to me, it's such an insignificant thing. Like, if a girl has like a ripped body, it might be cool or whatever, but like it really isn't, for me, that much of an impact. I mean, I can be kind of attracted to anybody in different ways. So maybe some girls have bigger breasts than others. Some girls have more of this feature than others. Some girls are taller than others. And like, I can kind of fall, if I like the person, for their overall essence and what gifts they have and things like that. So like, I legitimately told this person, I don't care that, you have extra weight on you. My concern is the communication. And all she kept thinking about was that I was lying to her, and it was really about her body. And that was an unfortunate thing, because she didn't listen. I find that a lot of people, they don't listen. And so then I actually have a friend who was advising another female friend who was having a relationship issue. And this was actually today. And so let me think what the issue was. She was, the guy said that this girl acts crazy too much. And then she kept saying that this guy has a lot more money than her, and she feels that he has an issue with the fact that he's always paying for things. And he specifically told her that that's not a problem for him. And then told my friend that it's not a problem. And but the problem is that she acts crazy and she does different behavior. And still she kept going on about how she doesn't feel like he likes her because he spends this money on her and they don't have an equal income. And he clearly said otherwise. And a lot of times people will be honest with you. Like, they'll tell you straight up what's going on, and all you have to do is like get out of your own way and listen to it. And I feel that a lot of women, they're like, yeah, but what's the real reason? And it's like, no, that's the real reason.
Well, I think I mean I can answer that because perspective is a huge thing, and our female insecurity, it's actually, well, human insecurity is going to change the glasses through which they see the world, you know. And I can relate to that because one of the things when I'm dating is, why aren't you dating a bodybuilder? Well, typically I'm not attracted to bodybuilders. I've dated athletic men, but not necessarily competitive bodybuilders. But that's their, you know, I think it's like similar to, you know, you and I, is that we both are active people. And it's like this, I don't know, it's like this self-imposed standard that the other sex puts on themselves when they're dating, you know. But that perspective and that insecurity is that people are only ever going to hear what they want to hear or what they're scared of hearing. You know, if somebody has an insecurity and hasn't dealt with that in appropriate ways, no matter what you say to them, it's going to, you know, you can tell them they're beautiful till you're blue in the face, but if they don't actually think they're beautiful, they're never going to believe you. And that's where, you know, when I coach people, I always coach, you know, start with yourself, do the hard work on yourself, because we don't do that as a human race. We worry about everybody else instead of ourselves. And I think that's created a lot of people with a lot of insecurities. And that's really not up to the other person to fix. So, you know, if you're dating somebody that thinks, you know, that they're less than perfect and you think they're beautiful, you know, that's unfortunate, because it doesn't matter how many times you tell them that they're beautiful and you're attracted to them. If they can't look at themselves in the mirror and love themselves, you know.
Yes, and actually even worse than that, like, it's kind of like, you know, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. It becomes its own like self-fulfilling prophecy, in the sense that, like, okay, so let's take you could apply this to anything. Like, a girl could be whatever she perceives. But let's say in her mind, she's too over the weight, or she's not comfortable with her stomach, or maybe she had a child and she doesn't like stretch marks or whatever. And I'll actually say, like, I don't care about that, because I really don't. Like, first of all, there's no perfect body. And actually, in a weird way, like, what makes that person unique, like, you can be attracted to. Like, I'm not saying everybody can, but I can, in the sense that, like, again, like, if a girl was like flat chested, I could be attracted to that. I could be attracted to if a girl has big breasts, if she's got this or she's got that. So, but what is a super turnoff for me is, like, if you get into the bedroom and somebody is like so into their own head about that, like, for example, they don't want to have the lights on. Like, I've ran into situations where, like, a girl doesn't want to put the lights on because she's insecure about her body. But, like, it never crossed my mind. I never looked at her body and thought, like, oh my God, she's fat, or oh my God, this or that. To me, I look at her body, I'm like, wow, like, you know, she's got a nice body, or she's got this feature, that feature. I don't focus on, like, the 10% that isn't, in her mind, perfect. And actually, like, to me, and I'm sure to you, like, confidence is a huge turn on. So let's say a girl was, like, didn't have a perfect body. Let's take two women, a girl with a perfect body in whatever that means, and a girl with an imperfect body. If a girl with a imperfect body is totally confident in the bedroom and doesn't care if the light's on, and like isn't second guessing herself and can be assertive, and like she likes who she is, total turn on. And then at the same time, if a girl who has a perfect body, and by the way, I've encountered that. I've been with girls who are competitors, and even though, like, I've been with girls who are ridiculously like low body fat, and then actually told me that their sex drive would be higher when they're closer to competition, because then they'll be happier with how they look. And like, I'm talking like you can already see six-pack abs, and it's like, I'm thinking you're insane. Like, but aside from that, then that person is self-conscious, and then they don't want to like have the lights on. They don't want you to see them from certain angles and stuff. And then that whole like, that makes things uncomfortable, and you can't just be yourself and be relaxed. And then that really kind of ruins it, you know? So if, my advice, like, and again, I can't speak for all guys, because maybe some guys are that judgmental, but my advice is be yourself, be confident with yourself. And I'm sure it's got to be that way with you, Angela, because like, I'm sure you faced similar, because since you're a competitor, you might face guys or deal with guys who aren't, or, you know, may not have perfect bodies, and then maybe they're worried about how you're judging them. Have you encountered?
Totally. I guess it's like, and I try to, when I coach people too, I try to relate this is when you flip through a magazine, and let's say it's not necessarily a fitness magazine, or just say it's a, you know, regular magazine with regular people. Do you ever look at them and think, for me, I know that I don't think anything less than, look at them, no matter what body shape, what body size, they can rock it. And I think that's beautiful in whatever it is. And, you know, it's, I'm always going to be my own worst critic, but it's taken, honestly, it's not been an overnight process to be able to, you know, take off my clothes at any level of body fat and feel confident. That's evolved over years of learning how to accept yourself. And, but it's, again, it's such a turnoff when, that, you know, if you're with a man and, you know, they're constantly, well, there's two extremes. On the extreme fit end, I don't want to be somebody that's more obsessed with how they look than I, you know, sometimes fitness is a huge part of my life, but if I'm dating somebody whose fitness is also a huge part of their life, there needs to be something else. You know, we need to talk about other things. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, let's say, you know, I have actually dated people who, you know, really didn't go to the gym, but I connected with them on an emotional or mental level, that's what made them attractive to me. And it really didn't matter, you know, what they looked like, as long as, to me, like, what I find attractive is the desire to improve. And, you know, if it's a physical goal or if it's a mental goal, but I like that fire within somebody that, you know, and that comes with confidence. And that's what I find attractive more than anything on the outside, for me anyway.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think that's definitely a virtuous attribute. And oftentimes, like, when I have dated people that have been competitors, it's more what their physique represents in terms of like a goal that they've achieved than it is like an actual visual stimulation, if that makes sense. So like, maybe if they have really nice features, it's more like, wow, I can appreciate the work that went into that. But it not necessarily like is what is driving me, like, you know, from a sexual point of view. It's more, you know, they had to spend a lot of hours working on that, and that, you know, that's a cool aspect. So let's talk about the UFC fighter, and it is a top UFC fighter that you've dated. I want to know like what that experience was like, And like, if you have any cool stories that won't like give away who it is in terms of like, I don't know, like I don't if you were with that person when they ran into fans or any kind of thing like that. But do you got any cool stories for me?
I think that it's strange because when I first met them, they were just a regular person, and we were actually friends for a couple of years before we dated. And so when we dated, I guess I didn't see him like everybody else saw him because I knew him obviously really well. But I guess when we were out and about, him being so recognizable was definitely interesting. Having people want to stop and take photos and that kind of thing is it was a unique experience. There's he is somebody though who has worked his ass off to get where he is and deserves every bit of his success. And I couldn't even say a bad word about him if I wanted to. Like, and he has had bad press over the years a little bit, and he's had lots of good press. And, it's definitely, it's, I don't really have anything like everything else would be very specific and it would be throwing him under the bus. But no, I was just going to say having somebody so recognizable is definitely, usually I'm the one that gets recognized. And so it was definitely, it was a humbling experience for me as well. So yeah, it was.
But what was it like then for you to no longer be the hot chick? Because like here's the weird thing is like, and like, I've attained a certain level of success in certain areas. So like, there's times I've been recognized, or there's times that women are attracted to me from where they're objectifying me, even doing the bodybuilding. And I don't think men really understand what it's like to be an attractive woman unless they're like in that situation. But so what was it like for you no longer to be the hot girl, but he was like the hot girl, so to speak,
Right. Humbling. It's interesting because, in my world, definitely I'm more recognizable than, when you take me and then you plot me into the MMA world. It's very different. And, there's a lot of fans and a lot of women, and it's, one of the things that it did teach me is a lot about trust and a lot about communication and, having the ability to, fully trust somebody with, temptation all around them. Well, not always, but, everywhere you go. And I think that was an interesting, when he's the hot girl and he can have whoever he wants. I guess for me, it's like it allows you to kind of get out of your own head. I like when I'm with somebody, I know how I feel about them. I know that I'm loyal. I know when I go out into the world, I know that they can trust me. There's, but the other person, there's always worry or, what if she meets somebody else, or what if she, sees somebody she's attracted to? I guess there's always those questions. So when it kind of flips the scenario a little bit, it really teaches you a lot about, I guess it comes like going to go back to having faith and just, roll with it. What's meant to be will be. Be who you are, be the best version of you, and go from there.
All right, so I have to put my like girl talk hat on here, and so okay, so was there anything unique about their personality that because obviously like to be a UFC fighter, and it's the same way with bodybuilding. You have to have a very kind of type of mentality to do that, a certain dedication and stuff like that. So were there unique attributes that you saw, that made that person a fighter that, drifted into other areas of their life?
Discipline and intensity and passion for what they do. I am a firm believer in you can do anything you want. You just have to make the commitment to it and work towards it every damn day. And, the top UFC fighters out there, UFC, any of the organizations, the top fighters, and I personally love fighters for this reason and this comparison is they bust their ass every day. And they're not training, 2 hours a day. They live and breathe it. They live and breathe that sport and work towards it every day. And that to me commands a huge amount of respect. And if we as all of us non-UFC MMA fighters just took a little bit of a lesson from that. And, and I know that you've had the opportunity to work with some fighters too, George St-Pierre and stuff over the years. And if you take, a little bit of that discipline and a little bit of that passion and a little bit of that intensity and apply it to your own goals, like for me, I just imagine like what you're capable of. And that was a very, very good lesson. And another thing that he taught me, I actually talked to you about that earlier this year, is being more in the public eye and sharing more of your life has, tremendous positive, I don't want to use the repercussions, but positive impact on your life, but it also opens yourself up to haters and some of the negative stuff that happens out into the world of people that you don't know. And this ex-boyfriend of mine, experienced this to kind of the extreme level. And when I encountered it, it was eye-opening to me because, mine was very small on the scale of haters and his was way up here. And so I said to him, what's your best advice to deal with this? And he said, just keep being you. Just keep being you, keep being publicly you, and anybody who knows you, takes the time to know you, will love you for who you are. And it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. And he's right. Because at the end of the day, none of that stuff affects who I am.
I think that really is good advice, and certainly when you're that high profile and there's stuff on Twitter and all these message boards and stuff like that, it is a challenge to deal with. So around George St-Pierre, but also a bunch of fighters, because before that I did a TV show that was on HDNet, which is now Access TV. And I traveled around a lot of the gyms in the U.S., so I got to be around a ton of different fighters and certainly unique individuals. So I'll actually drop 2 stories on you in trade but in exchange for those stories, is there I want to know in the bedroom, not specifics, but I want to know if being a fighter, if that was interesting in the sense that, they do a lot of jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. Were they super flexible? Was it give me some gossip about that. And then I'll trade that for 2 really interesting stories.
I would say, I appreciate experience. I appreciate confidence. And I do appreciate a man who has a pretty good handle on his body and how to use it. But most of all, I appreciate a dirty mind. I really do. People that are open to trying new things and having fun. And I'm trying not to get too specific, but I'm just going to say men who have this man had a very open mind and actually taught me quite a few things. Some of the stuff I'll never do again. A lot of it I would. So I would say that he definitely was one of the catalysts for me being way more open-minded when it comes to sex and positions and toys and that kind of thing.
Interesting.
Without getting too specific.
This could lead down a dangerous road because I'm a very open-minded person as well, and so I'll deflect it off of me though. I said I would tell you two good stories, so I'm going to make good on my bet. So, first one, George St-Pierre. So, okay, so he was known for being into black women. And I can only see what I observe with my own mind or with my own eyes. So this was like one specific situation. But anyway, so we were gonna go and we had to go to his apartment because we had to have a conversation. And he's got both a house and an apartment, or at least he did back at this time. This is several years ago, by the way. I should preface this by saying this is like 6 years ago, so none of this could currently be relevant, and that's kind of why I'll talk about it too. But I actually had to wait at the pool on a lawn chair of his apartment or his condominium while he had sex with a girl. So I had to sit there for like 2 hours, and I left my phone in the car, I believe. No, I had my phone, but I couldn't get Wi-Fi or something. But I had to just sit there and wait until he finished having sex with this girl before I could go up and see him. So that was an interesting experience, having to just like sit around and wait for a guy to kind of finish.
Team player.
Yeah. And then I actually wanted to see the girl do the walk of shame, which wouldn't necessarily be the walk of shame. I mean, who knows what their situation was or whatever, but I actually wanted to go to the front desk and wait for her to come down just so I could see the look of her as she has to leave. But sounds so bad. But yeah, anyway.
Time for you to go.
Yeah, I could have been really mean and be like, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out or something. No, and for all I know, that could have been like somebody he was, seriously interested in. I mean, I never got into his personal life with him, but I'll tell you a funny story, and I could tell you this as well because unfortunately this guy is deceased. But do you know Kevin Randleman?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're filming at Tap Out Gym, which is in Las Vegas. So Bobby Razek is this famous MMA director. He did all the Tap Out commercials before they were bought out. Right when they were in the height of popularity, when Mask was still alive and all this stuff. So he had done a movie with like a documentary with Kevin Randleman, where Kevin Randleman really opened up about his life. So they were really close. And I still don't know, I don't know how much I was set up, but I was certainly set up to a degree. So we had to, he had to be there at a certain time. And it wasn't just like, because I was the director, but it wasn't just my choice. It was like we had camera people there. We had the gym ready. We had like things shut off at certain parts of the gym. So he was like running late. So Bobby says to me, all right, call Kevin and tell him he needs to get down here. So he passes me the phone and I'm like, Kevin, you need to come down here. Everybody's waiting on you, like this type of thing. And in a pretty respectful way, but I was still like, making a sense of urgency. He says, let me talk to Bobby. And I hand it to Bobby, and all I hear is like, who is this effing white boy telling me what to do, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to come down there and I'm going to kick his ass. He's like, nobody tells me what to do, this and that. So anyway, fast forward, he eventually like shows up. But I was like at a different part, like setting up or whatever I was doing. All right, Kevin Randleman is here. He's pissed off and he's looking for you. So I'm like, okay, great. So, and I should also like kind of fill in that Kevin Randleman is a guy who, he is known as being an explosive fighter, of being kind of an emotional guy. And like, he's a super jacked guy, and he's he was like a national level wrestler, whatever he is. So really good in terms of wrestling, but he's knocked people cold out, including Crow Cop. So anyway, I go out and Randleman's there and he's all pissed off, and I go over to him and he's like, nobody tells me, you know, what to effing do. Like, who are you to tell me this? I'm gonna kick your ass, this and that. And I'm like, Kevin, like, I'm not disrespecting you. It's just that it's not just, I just was telling you when you had to be here, because it's not just to do with me. It has to do with, like, there's certain people that are working here behind the scenes and they have to get home at a certain time. And I want to make sure to get all of your stuff. And he's like, I want you to effing apologize to me, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, look, I would apologize if I did something wrong. Like, and I totally would. But I didn't do anything wrong, because I am just letting you know when you have to be here, because, you know, we have to do this, and, you know, we have a time frame. You know, if I was out of sorts, I'd be the first to apologize, but I'm not going to apologize for something that I didn't do that was wrong. And he is visibly getting more and more upset. And then the people that are around me, they're like, James, just fucking apologize. Just fucking apologize. You're crazy. And, like, I should tell you that he's probably, like, just about 3 feet away from me. And look, I mean, if the guy wanted to shoot on me, if he wanted to hit me or whatever, like, I wouldn't even be able to stop it in time, you know. And it's like, it's probably like a concrete floor too. I mean, but there was something about it where, I'm not trying to say I'm a tough guy, I'm not trying to say anything, but I felt that I was in the right, I didn't do anything wrong. And I also kind of felt that if I had backed down or shown some kind of weakness, that then something might have actually happened. But that the fact that I was, like, standing by my principles, that was more of a better way to deal with things, because I really wasn't afraid for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just stupid and I should have been afraid, but I didn't feel afraid for whatever reason. So, because I just felt like in that situation, like, there was no reason to be that hostile towards me or whatever. And I wasn't, and even though he was getting angry and stuff, I wasn't getting angry back. I wasn't shouting back. I was, you know, very calm. So finally I was just like, I just continued to state, you know, what the facts were, and, you know, stuff like that. And eventually he just calmed down and went, and he did a great job and did the piece and all that kind of stuff. And everybody's like, I can't believe you did that or whatever. But I mean, I think there's certain times in life where, like, you can't look at somebody and judge them because they're a fighter or they're this or they're that. You have to look at them as a person. And to me, that shows, like, a deeper respect. Like, I'm not going to just kiss somebody's ass because they're a fighter or because they're a celebrity or because they could hurt me or anything like that. Because, you know, what's right is right. And, you know, I'm not going to sit there and, like, grovel and apologize to somebody just because of that. So, unfortunately, he passed away. And but yeah, he went on to be super nice after that, and you know, it was, other than calling me, like, effing white boy a few times in the heat of the moment, it was water under the bridge. And I don't know, I'm kind of used to dealing with different personalities. I've always been, like, a very calm personality. Like, my dad was an airline pilot, and I think that that he had a certain personality to deal with the fact that, you know, there's situations where you have bad weather or whatever, and kind of be calm in the face of that storm. And I've always had that ability, and I'm sure I know that to be a paramedic you have to do that, right? Because if you show up and there's lots of blood and there's this and that, you can't be like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Like,
no, you can't freak out.
You can't be like, we gotta call the exterior. You can't be like, we got to call an ambulance. Like, we are the ambulance.
Well, that's just it. Oh, yeah, I'm in charge. Like, you know, it's funny. It's funny how it teaches you a lot to grow up really quickly.
And being a fighter, I know that, like, I've not not been in a fight, but I've actually walked out with fighters and felt the energy. And there's a certain personality. Like George St-Pierre is like a very reserved kind of, almost like the first time you meet him, like he's almost like super shy. And it takes a certain personality to be able to walk out into a stage and into an environment and be able to maintain your composure and actually use it to kind of like be hyper focused and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've auditioned a lot of people, and you see them, like, especially if they've never auditioned for something before, they'll start shaking and stuff. And I tell them, like, look, everybody has like these nerves that you're feeling in different stressful situations. It's there for a reason, but the trick is to harness that and to use it to be like more focused instead of like using it to like overwhelm you. And I think that's really like helpful in many circumstances. I mean, let's face it, you know this, like even backstage, it's kind of a weird like Mad Max thing when you're warming up and you're getting ready to go on stage and you're like standing in a lineup of a bunch of people you're competing with. And like, I know for guys, like I don't know about the girls, but the guys are like doing push-ups, and like there's sort of like a competitive aspect of it where your adrenaline's going and stuff. And you know, it's easy to go out there and like screw up, but you kind of have to like, when I go out, like all I'm thinking about in those moments, and I'm sure I would do the same thing if I was fighting, is I'm thinking, okay, remember, you know, how to hit your pose, remember how to do this, remember how to do that, and kind of block out what's around you and use that to just be really in the moment about what you're doing. And I find that's the best way to be, including like even being on camera, anything like that. Like I just try to use that nervous energy or whatever to help me rise to the occasion. Now you've been in a lot of crazy situations. You've been you know, an EMT, you've been on stage, you know, tell me how you deal with kind of that energy.
I feed off of it. But I also, you know, from the time I was little, I naturally like to entertain, and I naturally like to fill a role. So being on camera, you know, it's, I find it actually less nerve-wracking when I can just wing it than if I actually have a script. And I kind of compare competing, being on stage, to similar to having a script, because, you know, you go out, you've got your mark, you basically know what to do. It's all scripted. Your poses have been practiced, over practiced, and you know, I think being in the moment and being able to keep your thought process through there. You know, when I think about my first couple of years in EMS, I barely remember them. And that was because my adrenaline was so high that you basically just go on autopilot. And I remember, you know, coming home from a shift and just being done, like mentally wiped. And I think that, you know, you become desensitized to that, you know, over time and with practice. And then the same kind of goes for, you know, fighters. You know, they've done more than one fight. They maybe started in the amateur ranks and worked their way up. And so they've kind of, I think, become accustomed to that adrenaline response and learned how to, you know, keep composure. And it is becoming hyper focused, because in those moments, you don't think of anything else. You think of the job you are there to do, and you do it. You know, like even on stage and on that call, you know, being on call in the EMS world, there's a lot more critical thinking components, and there is a lot more pressure to be making the right choices. But that becomes with time, that, you know, that feeling inside yourself of, I can look at somebody now and know within 3 seconds if this call is serious or not. And that is a skill that just develops with time. And so I think that the more that we practice the things that we love, and the things, if you like to perform, camera, and the opportunity for fighters to take fights. And, you know, I think it's something for them. They train so many hours. And I think that's why competitors who have spent hours practicing it really shows, as from a spectator point of view, you can really like peg the ones off that have practiced, because it's like this inner confident, radiant energy that comes out of those people. And it's quite an interesting thing, I think, watching how some people deal with it. And and I don't think it ever really goes away, especially when you're somebody who wants to constantly improve, because it's this self-imposed expectation of how you want to perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've definitely done well under pressure. I think that's a good point to wrap it up. I can't believe how quickly the time flew. Of course, we've had a relationship for a long time, and that makes it easy, because it's just like old friends talking. But I want to give you an opportunity to kind of promote whatever you're involved with now, as well as to give out your social media and all of those types of things, and I'll post them under the video as well for people to check out.
Thanks, James. It's been awesome catching up with you. Way overdue. Right now I'm back in the Visalis business and promoting the Body by Vi Family Challenge. You might recognize the names Monica Brandt and Jenny Lynn, both fitness icons in the fitness industry. So I've partnered with them. I actually left the business for a couple of years and really missed it. I kind of tried a couple of other companies and didn't find what I missed with Vi. So I got back involved with my team. And it's really, what I love about the business is it doesn't just teach you to become, it's not just a health transformation. It teaches you to set goals on a, professional level, on a personal level, and to constantly challenge yourself and learn, which is what I coach anyway. And it gives me a platform to be able to help more people that maybe I wouldn't be able to necessarily work with just through, my online coaching and lifestyle business. So my website is www.inkedangelfitness.com. My social media on Instagram is at Inked Angel Fitness, and Angela Robinson on Facebook. So I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, James. It was so good seeing you.
Awesome. And she really loves stalkers and, no, I'm just kidding.
Here's my phone number. Don't put it on there, James.
I should put up somebody else's phone number as a joke, like somebody that I just want them to get harassed or whatever. I'll be like, here's Angela's phone number.
Yeah, put the guy I'm seeing's phone number there. I'm sure he'd love it. We're not.
Yeah, that might be the end of the feeling up.
Like, Angela, you're an asshole.
Well, it's been great, and like you said, long overdue, and let's do this again. Let's I'm sure we have tons more to talk about, and our paths have crossed so many times, and we've been involved in so many similar worlds that we could talk about, that I think it's just it just is a natural fit for us to get together and do these. So I really appreciate your time, and you opening up, especially about your challenges in terms of dealing with depression and post-traumatic stress, and hopefully when you spread the word like that, there's, even if, like you said, even if it's an opportunity to touch one person that might be listening, or help somebody in one kind of way, to use your words, throwing that out in the universe is a virtuous thing to do, and I think it's great for you to do that. And these things aren't always easy to talk about, so I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, thanks for having me and giving me the opportunity.
And have a great second workout. I hope the pre-workout kicks in, and
I have the other half.
Damn. Works out twice in a day, this girl.
Right. Well,
For
can you
today.
blame me? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's just I like breaking it up. I don't want to be at the gym for 3 hours, so I'd rather do like an hour and then hour and a half to 2. Way better.
Very cool. And plus, you can get some food in you in the meantime.
That's true. I'm gonna do a picture, James.
Okay, cool. I got some as well, which I'll send you.
Do you? Can you send them to me?
Yeah. Actually,
Okay.
they're really good too, because I've got my camera and everything, my setup in the back.
Okay, perfect. We'll do that. Awesome.
All right, I'll send that to you, and take care and have a fantastic evening.
Yeah, you too, James. Chat soon.
Thanks, Angela.
Okay. Bye.